gradually inching towards Christmas. It's the beginning of another week. Good evening. Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from Anusa Bata this week, and also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Okansi. Tonight, Constitutional Review Committee's report outdoored with some far-reaching proposals, including the change in the Chief Justice removal process, plus a 5-year, 2-term limit for the president. Well, this and many others is captured in there. We're going to have a conversation on this matter tonight. Stay with us. Also, this exclusive interview with the chairman of the committee as he outlines what influenced the proposals, plus the next steps. He sat with Kemini Amano. Now, we're going to play some aspects of this particular exclusive interview. Stay with us tonight. Also, much later, more trouble for the NPP's chairman Wontumi as the Attorney General is set to file fresh charges against him, bringing the cases against him to 3. And also the latest on Kofi Apalu, the LPG flag bearer and founder. Well, it's in the thick of things with the earlier updates from the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayine. Well, there's more of this, and as always, you're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
The Constitution Review Committee has proposed a 1-year extension of Ghana's presidential term, recommending a shift from the current 4-year tenure to a 5-year term to allow governments more time to govern effectively. Presenting the committee's report to President John Mahama on Monday, December 22, Chairman of the committee, Professor Henry Kwesi Prempeh, clarified that the proposal does not include a 3rd-term option for presidents.
We couldn't find a place for a 3rd term for the president. So we looked and looked and looked. We couldn't find. I mean, we realized that the president himself doesn't like it. Nobody really seems to like it. There wasn't much of a demand for it at all. The only thing about that was the invitation for us to clarify ambiguity, and we didn't even want to go there. We didn't think that 66.2 raised any issues in terms of ambiguity, so we kept it the way it is.
The Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dr. Dominic Ayine, has announced that the state will prosecute Wontumi Farms and its directors for alleged financial crimes involving the Ghana Export-Import Bank. Addressing journalists at the Accountability Series, Dr. Ayine said investigations conducted by the Economic and Organized Crime Office have uncovered sufficient evidence to support charges of defrauding by false pretenses, forgery, and causing financial loss to the state.
Our investigations established that Chairman Wontumi had approached Kasama Enterprise, an industrial equipment dealer, and obtained an invoice with a promise to return to purchase the said equipment. He never went back to purchase the equipment. Instead, he forged the invoice he obtained from Kasama Enterprise by removing the word invoice and replacing it with receipt. This forged receipt was then submitted to Exim Bank as proof that he had purchased the equipment after the disbursement of the loan facility. Investigations established that Chairman Wontumi did not purchase any equipment and as such could not register any equipment in the joint names of Exim Bank and Wontumi Farms Limited as per the loan conditions, even though funds were disbursed to him to that effect.
Meanwhile, the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayeni, announced that the leader of the Liberal Party of Ghana, Percival Kofi Akpaloo, will be charged with alleged forgery and related offences.
Regarding transactions on an account belonging to Poma Universal Ghana Limited, that is a company owned by, they said, Kofi Akpaloo. Following the STR, that is a suspicious transaction report by the FIC, the Economic and Organized Crime began an investigation into the matter. Ekua Poma also alleged that Akpaloo forged her signature on the Cocoa Board contract using her former name, Mercy Owusu, to secure the agreement without her authorization. First Bank Ghana Limited conducted an internal investigations and corroborated the fraud allegations that we have made, concluding that Akpaloo knowingly misrepresented ownership of the checks and deposited them into the wrong account.
The Accra High Court has varied the bail terms of former National Petroleum Authority Chief Executive Officer Mustafa Abdul Hamid and 9 others. Per the previous bail conditions, Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid A1, Jacob Kwabena Amwa A2, and Wendy Newman A3 were to report to the registrar of the court, while the remaining were to report to the registry. Tensions is mounting among more than 800,000 workers of the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, over government plans to appoint a transaction advisor to manage the retail collection of electricity bills. Speaking exclusive to our Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku in Accra, the General Secretary of PUU, Timothy Nyame, expressed deep concern over the development.
The enthusiasm to which the workers started work across the nation, I tell you, there are committees in place from the national to the regional to the district level where everybody is working. We have a situation where we monitor operations that at anywhere there's a problem, we quickly run to the place to make sure that we fix things. Now, these are the workers who have geared up and they are working, making sure that there's power should be stable throughout this unit time. For them to hear that you are bringing a transitional advisor, we don't even know what the person is coming to do.
There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. We're also on 3 News on YouTube. It's also always proudly brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, Sasso Insecticide Spray and Qualcomm Tum Tum Preco coming up next year on Ghana Tonight. The Constitutional Review Committee's report has been outdoored with some far-reaching proposals, including a change in the Chief Justice removal process, plus a 5-year 2-term limit for the president. 5-year 2-term limit. So what that means is if a president wins and appears to have gotten the favor of the people for another term, that's going to be a combined term, 2 terms of 10 years. But the Constitutional Review Committee's report has been outdoored earlier today. These far-reaching proposals, including this change in the Chief Justice removal process, plus this 5-year 2-term limit for the president of the country, that including others, for instance, and some proposals about the fight against corruption, the architecture of our corruption fight as captured in the Constitution as well. Some proposals have been made in that regard. We're going to be focusing on some specific areas for tonight. We have a detailed breakdown for you. But first, let's take a listen to the President, John Dramani Mahama, earlier today as he received the report from the committee. Take a look.
We're moving from the constitutional review process into the implementation process. And so early next year, we would announce an implementation committee. And of course, we're going to call some of you to come and serve on that committee because we need that institutional memory transferred into the implementation.
Let's take a listen to Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh as well, who chaired this entire committee's process of consultation. Also spoke briefly during the period of the presentation of this report to the president. By the way, the report has been published on the presidency's website, so it's a public document that you can access. So you can follow us every step of the way as we do the analysis, tease out the specific areas. It's a huge document, so it's going to be a long haul of analysis in the coming days, and also informing you about some of the proposals in this committee's report. But this is Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh earlier today at the presidency as well. Take a look.
We couldn't find a place for a third term for the president. So we looked and looked and looked. We couldn't find. I mean, we realized that the president himself doesn't like it. Nobody really seems to like it. There wasn't much of a demand for it at all. The only thing about that was the invitation for us to clarify ambiguity, and we didn't even want to go there. We didn't think that 66.2 raised any issues in terms of ambiguity, so we kept it the way it is. However, we believe we took to heart the recommendations that we got from many of the eminent persons that we met, including some who have occupied your seat, that the 4-year term was short. It was too short. And we also then learned that the emerging global norm was 5. And that even in the region, we in Nigeria have the lowest. I mean, 4 is pretty low. So we're proposing an extension by 1 more year.
That's Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh there, 1 more year. So that effectively means that 4 years to 5 years, 1 term. And a few others. We're going to run through it as I indicated. And Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah is a governance expert, former senior governance advisor to the United Nations. He's going to be joining us on Zoom for his quick thoughts on this. But parts of the recommendations has it, and I'm going to put it on the screen right now. The committee recommends an amendment to Article 66(1) to extend the length of a president's term from 4 to 5 years. They also say a person must attain to qualify for election as president from 40 to 30 years. So what that means is that the current position of the law, the constitutional provision for eligibility to contest as a presidential candidate in this country as an independent or on the ticket of a political party is 40 years and above. What this Constitutional Review Committee is recommending in this report after their extensive wide consultative process is that should be reduced to 30 years. So if you're 30 years, you tick the boxes of all the other requirements, your sound mind and so on, you can put up yourself to be president of the Republic of Ghana. There have been some varied views on it. We'll put a question on social media for a number of you to share your thoughts on this particular one. This one. Reduction of the age of eligibility to be president, to contest as president and be president of the Republic of Ghana from 40 to 30 years. Some very interesting views you've been sharing with us. We'll get into it. But they said no member of parliament may be appointed a minister of state or a deputy or regional minister. So you see, then this is another area as well that the committee's report has generated some conversation, because then it goes to counter the constitutional provision of the executive appointing more than half of its ministers from parliament, just to ensure checks and balances and not the strict separation of powers as some other countries practice. But as to why this proposal is also going to be another aspect of the conversation in the coming days as well. But a member of parliament who resigns from parliament shall not be eligible for appointment as a minister of state or a deputy minister of state or a regional minister. A petition to challenge the validity of the election of a person declared as president-elect shall be brought by a citizen of Ghana to the Supreme Court within 14 calendar days after the declaration of the results of the election. Take note of this Also, there was a proposal to take away the Attorney General's authority to prosecute corruption and corruption-related offenses. They are making a proposal for the establishment of a commission that would be giving the powers of the prosecutory powers to prosecute corruption and corruption-related offenses. And that power now, they are recommending it should be taken away from the Attorney General. Now, we'll hear from Martin Pebu on this one as well. He's going to be joining us. So, and this and many others. But Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah is a former senior governance advisor to the United Nations, and he's joining us on Zoom right now. Prof, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I just ran through some snippets of this report. You've been combing through it as well. It's fresh on the plate, so it's going to take quite a while. But what's your initial view of some of the major proposals that this committee has made in this report that we've seen now?
Thank you, and thanks for having me. First of all, let me say that I'm very pleased that the president, promising his campaign to initiate constitutional review, has really become truthful on that matter. And I'm happy that early in his tenure, he set this up. And fortunately for us also, the people he placed on the committee are all very capable people. And I'm not surprised at all at the kind of findings and recommendations that they presented to the president. I think after 32 or so years of this constitution, even though the constitution has served us, it has stabilized us, we are referred to as perhaps the very stable democracy in West Africa, if not in the whole of the continent. But still, experience has taught us that there are certain critical issues that need to be reviewed. And more importantly, as we see the reversal of democracy in some other African countries, especially in our part of Africa, West Africa, that also should alert us to the necessity for re-energizing our constitutional system. As I said, several, but there were some essential factors. And I think the committee has very adroitly captured the sentiments of the people, because most of these issues are not new. We've been advocating for change for years, and the president himself is very much aware, being around for such a long time in our democracy. So I'm happy that in the end, these recommendations, most of them may appear to be radical, are well deserved. And I think we should just look forward to how we get them off the ground and become actionable.
Perfect. And there are some far-reaching recommendations and proposals in there. You heard Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh indicate that the bit about a third term for the president didn't find space in the report. That's number one. And the fact that the president himself is not even interested in that conversation, he's stated his position quite clearly on it a number of times. But let's look at this. Now they're proposing an increase of the term limit, that's from 4 years to 5 years, 2 terms. How does this strike you? Especially because I recall that this is a matter that the former president, John Agyeman Kufuor, whom you work closely with, had made that proposal at some point, in fact, before he exited office. So now that it's been captured in a document, ostensibly to be considered for the review of our constitution, how does this strike you, this particular one?
Again, doesn't surprise me. Look, when former President Kufuor was leaving office, in fact, his very last address to the nation, he recommended the need to at least make it a 5-year tenure for presidents from his own experience. And it's very true. You win the presidency, even though some may argue that before you become president, you know who is going to work for you. Yes, but generally not true. You win the presidency, you have to appoint new people. And most of the people who may be appointing may not have any experience at all in governance. So you are putting them in places such as the ministries and other very important state institutions. They have to learn the ropes. I could take them months. So I think the first year of any new president is the year of adjusting and seeking to see how the agenda can be carried out. You see, one thing that I think has made President Mahama so far successful in his second tenure, for me, is his experience, the experience he had for the first term that he was in office. He learned everything. So for him, his vision was sharper this time than before. And as you can tell, he came in and started right away moving his agenda forward. So that may not be the same with new presidents and new appointees that he may have. So I think 4 years, you spend 1 year adjusting. The 2 years, you are seriously working on your agenda. And then 3 years up. Then as a politician, knowing that you need a second term, your attention now begins to shift to campaigning to win again. And that doesn't allow our government to really consolidate some of the initiatives that they introduced. So I think the 5-year term that has been proposed is a good one. It's not out of sync with many other countries that we know. Even in our own region, the sub-region, Liberia has 6 years. Other countries have 7 years and all. And France used to have 7 years. So the 4 years seems to be the barest minimum that most democracies provide. But we are not tied to that. So depending on our experiences, we have realized that, in fact, it's best to add at least 1 year to make it a 5-year term for our government. So that's what I think I'm very much in support of that.
I see, but if you're increasing the number of years in the term from 4 to 5, then that must come with some level of improved governance, is it not? Because the president himself did indicate that Afrobarometer survey and others, that's point to the citizens losing confidence in democracy because the offerings and the outcomes of democracy is not something, at least, to be meeting the expectations of people who are governed by it. And so you have other people now mulling the idea of other means of governance than democracy. And so if we're talking about increasing the number of years that the president would stay in office, that should not be a standalone. It has to go with some improved governance so that the people would have reason to want to endure or be in a particular period of 5 years under one person, isn't it?
Oh, precisely, because one of the sayings about extended terms is that if you are not lucky to get a bad government, then you are stuck for 5 years in this case, as is in the case that you are proposing. But then if you are lucky to get a good one, then you wish it had been 10 years, So I'm not surprised that during this first year of the Mahama administration, some people are even agitating for another term for him because they believe that he has started well, or it's premature to conclude on those things. But the point is that we expect good governance. So I think if you look at the overall recommendations, it's also they are also recommending certain measures that will strengthen good governance mechanisms in our democracy. So it's not just 5 years and that's it. There are, for instance, they're talking about reducing the excessive powers of the president. And I think in his response to the presentation, the president himself made a comment on that. They are going to reduce his powers. They are proposing that some of them be given to the Council of State so that the Council of State really can play a more meaningful role rather than be in the background and, so to speak, advising the president. And that is a way to again introduce good governance. So certain appointments, for instance, will not be made directly by the president, but they are recommending that these appointments go through the normal procedure of recruitment, and then the Council of State can sift through all that and make recommendations to the president, and the president will be the one to sign the appointment. And I think that's a very interesting way of, again, reducing politics and partisanship in the way public officials are appointed. So I think, yes, in the end, we are hoping that the extension of the tenure will come along with good governance for democracy.
I see. There's one other aspect of their recommendation has also generated some conversation. That's what we put on the screen right now, and we're going to put it. And Prof, I know you're watching us right now. Take a look at this. This is it. That a person must attain, well, the age that you would be eligible to contest as and also be elected to be president of the Republic of Ghana should be reduced from 40 years to 30 years. That's one of the recommendations in this report. From 40 years reduced to 30 years. And there wasn't really clear explanation of what went into this. But that's one of the proposals they've captured in there, Prof.
That one, personally, I have a problem with that. Not that I don't believe in the capacity of young people to be leaders. I do. But in my estimation, if you look at the amount of time it takes for a Ghanaian to even complete university, by the time you are finishing your first degree, it used to be about 28, but now let's say around 24, 25. And then you want to do a master's degree under 2 years. And therefore, you are not going to have enough room to be exposed to global politics and other things. You won't have room for experiencing leadership. Being a NUG president is not enough to be president, if people think that's one way to become president. So I think 30 years for our part of the world. In other countries, like in Norway, we have a very young prime minister, I think 33 or so years later. And you may find that in a few other places. But if you look at the background of that country and how their citizens develop their capacities, it's not the same as we have here. So if you are unlucky and you have a 30-year-old person who is just erudite and charming and speaks well and charms everybody to get voted, we're going to have a serious problem with administration. So I think, for me, 35 will be the best, because hopefully by 35, any aspiring president will have seen a little bit of the world, have gotten a certain experience, hands-on experience on managing things. Because look, managing a country is not managing your private business or your family or anything of the sort. These days, the global politics as it runs, very complex, and new developments that are really beginning to impact on African countries to seek their own sovereignty and all these are things that I think a presidential hopeful must be aware of, so that when he comes, he's not going to take 1 year, 2 years to even understand simple international relations that have become so important in the governance of countries. So the 30 year for me, I think, is on the low side. I would have preferred 35 minimum.
And I thank you very much for this. And 35, well, there are also, in fact, some people who have been sharing their views on our social media. And the 35 is a proposal that seems to also find some acceptance in the minds of the people who have been sharing their views. But this is the other aspects of the recommendations as well. This borders on the removal of the Electoral Commission chair and her deputies. The report captures this proposal. The committee recommends an amendment to Article 228 to provide as follows. The commissioner or a deputy commissioner may be removed only on grounds of a willful violation of law, dereliction of duty, or abuse of power. A petition seeking the removal of the commissioner or a deputy commissioner shall be submitted to the Council of State. The president shall state the grounds for removal and the relevant facts supporting the petition. So take note of this. A petition seeking the removal of the EC and a deputy shall be submitted to the Council of State. This is contrary to what the situation is now, that this petition is submitted to the president. What this Constitutional Review recommendation proposal captures is that the petition shall be submitted to the Council of State. Then, the petition shall state the grounds for removal and the relevant facts supporting the said grounds. Upon receipt of the petition, the Council of State shall constitute a subcommittee of its members to review the petition to assess whether the petition discloses on its face grounds and facts requiring further investigation by the Council. If the preliminary review determines that the petition presents a case warranting further investigation, the Council shall constitute a 5-person independent tribunal with membership drawn from outside the Council to conduct an investigation into the matter. So this is the process. So it's a clear departure from what the current structure is captured in the Constitution. So the president doesn't even get involved. It's not even a conveyor belt at any point, because the petition doesn't even go to him from the start. It goes to the Council of State, as against what we have now, where the petition goes to the presidency. As we are told today that there are about 7 petitions submitted to the presidency for the removal of the Electoral Commission chair and deputies, as we do know. This proposal now says if such petitions come, and if eventually this proposal is adopted, if such petitions come, it will not go to the presidency, go to the Council of State. Council of States will now go through the process. So at what point are the president coming? The commissioner or the deputy commissioners who is the subject of the removal shall be accorded all appropriate due process, including representation by counsel and the right to interrogate and cross-examine the petitioner. The tribunal shall make its recommendations to the Council of State upon conclusion of its investigation. The Council of State shall submit. So this is the only time. So the president comes in at the end of the process, as against this one that the president comes in at the beginning and at the end. He receives the petition and then it's out of his hands. Well, this one, the Council of State shall submit the recommendations of the tribunal to the president, who shall act in accordance with the said recommendation. So this is the only time the president comes in, and the hearing shall be in camera. Well, there's been questions about what went into these recommendations and how far-reaching the proposals are, and also the consultative process. My colleague, Kamene Amano, and that's what's coming up next on Ghana Tonight. Let's stay on this constitutional review process coming up next, that exclusive interview that my colleague Kamene Amano had with Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, who chaired the entire Constitutional Review Committee's engagement and consultative process. We'll play just bits of it. We'll go into the next phase of our conversation. And this one was specific about, one, the age proposal of reducing it from 40 to 30, which has got a number of you talking, because then what that means is Dennis Poberi, Wedam, my producer, myself, we can all, tell me if we want to be president, decide to contest. But this is it. Take a look. This is what Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh said went into that particular proposal. Take a look.
If the people look at you and they say, this guy is 90, and so I'm not going to vote for a 90-year-old man to get to the presidency, or a 90-year-old woman, that's their choice to make. The people themselves know what they are getting. It's not as if your age is off limit. They know your age, and if they choose to vote for you, that's their problem. But in the same vein, when we were talking about the minimum age for presidency, it's currently 40.
Right.
And we said, well, it should come down to 30.
To 30.
That's what I'm saying. But how can a 30-year-old? It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that when you are 30 and you stand for president, you're going to get elected. It's for the people to decide. If you're 30 and they feel you have accomplished a lot and you have a lot to offer, your maturity shows, your experience shows at 30, and they want to vote for you, that's their choice. In many of the countries that are far more advanced, they are electing much younger people, right? So 40 years seem to us a bit high, because even in 1960, the Constitution allowed 35-year-olds to stand for president. In 1969, when we had a Westminster constitution. You know, in the Westminster system, the parliamentary system, because they don't have presidents, they don't have, the executive is chosen from parliament. So the minimum age at that time was 21, right? 21, you could get into parliament. And from parliament, you then became a minister. So that's how, I think President Kufuor became a minister or deputy minister at 28 or something in his days. He was already in parliament. The minimum way to get to parliament was 21. So once you are in parliament, you could become the prime minister at 21, 22. So we've had a system before where much younger people were allowed to get into government. So what's the big deal about lowering the age to 30? Our demographics show that a larger percentage of the population is below 35.
So that decision was taken based on the demography?
Demography, and also just, we are a youthful population.
Being abreast with time?
Absolutely, we're a much youthful population. I mean, you can't still, at this time, expect that, you know, somebody should be 50 before they can. No, it's not going to fly. Well, that's the explanation now. It brings some clarity to this decision to reduce it from 40 to 30. He also explains the bit about the third term conversation and why it did not even find any place in this report. Plus, there's Office of Special Prosecutor and some of the recommendations in this Constitutional Review Committee's report. Take a look.
Your committee declined the invitation to propose more than 2 terms for the presidency.
There's no demand for it.
There's no demand for it?
There's no demand.
There have been talks about it.
In fact, in all of our engagements, I think I remember no more than 2 or 3 places or 2 or 3 instances where somebody said, let's remove the term, and everybody was like, in the room, you know. And one, it's not a popular thing. Every survey we've had in Ghana says, no, people don't want it. And even within the parties, you know, it is not only constitutions that protect term limits. I think that one of the strongest protections of term limits in Ghana are the political parties. Because there's a long line. Charlie, they want you to go. So which party do you think will sit there for any one person to stay over 2 terms? They don't want to chop the job too. Even Rawlings, they made him leave, right? The parties are one of the biggest protectors of the 2-term limits. So there is no demand, either from the people or from the party or from the incumbent president. Right? So it was a very easy choice for us. But also, we also realized there's not a demand question. We don't yield to public. Even if there was a demand, we would have said no. Because it has allowed our democracy to grow, because we have term limits. Assuming we didn't have term limits, since 1992, how many presidents do you think we would have had? Let's say there was no term limits provision.
I mean, it's difficult to say more than 1 or 2.
Absolutely. Right? Because when you have the opportunity to stay in forever,
you will.
You will find a way to stay in. You will rig an election. It will contaminate our elections. If there was no term limits, our elections would not be this easy.
But did your considerations include the peculiar nature of the Mahama presidency?
No, at all. Because we were, in fact, that was one of the other questions. Okay. So we were also invited to amend it for clarity. And we said, no, we won't yield to that temptation either, because we don't believe that there is a lack of clarity. We believe what it says is what it is. Because in another part of the Constitution, where the framers were keen to make a difference, you know that currently district chief executives are allowed, because they are appointed, they are allowed more than 2 terms, non-consecutive. So there, where they meant that the term limits could be non-consecutive and that you could come back for a 3rd term, they said it clearly. They used the word consecutive. So we said, look, the people who wrote this English here in Article 62(1), they knew what they were writing. They were the same people who wrote the one in the district chief executive section. If they wanted the word consecutive to be there, they would have inserted it. Here is plain language. 2 means 2.
So you leave it as it is.
We leave it at that. So we didn't want to yield to temptation on either side. I mean, there's no real need. Ghana doesn't need term limits. It's not broken. It's consistent with our philosophy, guiding principle that we started with. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Because part of the OSP's challenge, at least in terms of the constitutional side, is the sense that the AG has, at least on paper, on the text of the Constitution, on the face of it, has a monopoly of prosecution, constitutionally given to the AG, and here you have hived off some of that, not through the Constitution, by legislation, and something that is unconstitutional. So now we're saying we are going to hive it off in the Constitution so that it can be unconstitutional. So more or less, we are constitutionalizing
the office of the
OSP, you would say. Yeah.
I see. But then we don't do anything about Attorney General and then Ministry of Justice being one?
No, because there isn't any conflict there. That we the real problem is a prosecutorial power problem.
Right.
And we're also saying that regardless of who has the prosecutorial power, AG or OSP, if you discontinue a case, you give us reasons.
Right.
You give public reasons why you discontinue the case. Because otherwise, this practice of you came to meet a case and then you look at the person, oh, this is my friend, I discontinue that one.
Right.
Then I go and pick another person. I mean, we need to sanitize the space.
Indeed.
You know, we do. This is all just trying to clean up something that is otherwise good.
Well, so that's that exclusive interview my colleague Kemini Amano had with Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh. He was a chair of the Constitutional Review Committee that their work report submitted to the president. The full complement of it, the extended interview, will be on hot issues. But between now and then, stay with us because it's going to be very important conversations on different aspects of this particular report. But please keep that in mind on hot issues. On Sunday, you get a full complement of this interview with Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh. Now, let's stay on the last point that Kemini ended Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh's, that what we just played on, the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Martin Pebo is joining us right now. He is a private legal practitioner, and then also one who has been asking questions of the Office of the Special Prosecutor over time. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us. If you look at the recommendations in there, in this Constitutional Review Committee's report, they say that the committee, that's the Constitutional Review Committee, is recommending the establishment of an independent anti-corruption and ethics commission under the Constitution, and it would have the power to investigate allegations of corruption and corruption-related offenses and exclusive power to prosecute such offenses, essentially taking that power away from the Attorney General as it stands now. And then also they say that this commission would work with the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the SHRAJ, and others in the fight against corruption. A good way to go?
Yes, it's a good start, but that's not the whole story. So as far as I'm concerned, when I saw it, they didn't go into details as much as I would have wished. Of course, there is also sense in the approach the H. Kwesi Prempeh committee is taking. They can't deal with everything to the nitty-gritty level. So some of the points, they have to deal with the main thematic points. So the main thematic point is that we should not have an Office of Special Prosecutor, but we should have an anti-corruption and ethics commission, right? It makes sense. The reason it does is that you see that we've learned from so that's Anti-Corruption and Ethics Commission. Yes, we got it right. That's, for those interested, that's page 85 of the report. Yes, so that you can go there straight and follow the debate here. Yeah, page 85 of the H. Kwesi Prempeh report. Now, this is the point. The reason it makes sense is that we've learned and we've bent our fingers what we can suffer when you give all the power to one person, saying special prosecutor. We've already learned it under this Kissie Jabin-led Office of Special Prosecutor. We've seen how consolidating all the power in one person, when the person is not up to the job, he will ruin the office. Today, Ofori-Atta fled because a special prosecutor saw it, and then he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to shout, hey, Julo, Julo, Julo. He couldn't blow the whistle. So we've seen that it doesn't make sense to give the power to one single person. Set up a commission. then you see we've been saying it all the time that when a complaint comes, it will go to the commission, will set up, maybe the commission as management board will meet, not one person. When it's one person, the person can sit on the a petition. That's what we call suppression of petitions. Once again, like what happened in the SML matter, you saw the diary of action. We displayed it, the one Manasseh Azure brought. Should I display it on my phone again? We saw that the first entry in that diary of action was 29th of January 2025, when Ofori-Atta had already fled. Ofori-Atta had fled Ghana. And meanwhile, the special prosecutor had seen him leaving. All right. So and remember that Ofori-Atta is one person who had 5 cases, or who has 5 cases around his neck. So it's not just Ofori-Atta fleeing from one case, but 5 cases, gargantuan cases. So the point is that once we've seen that, hey, giving power to one person can ruin the office, cause us too much trouble. You know, all the other challenges we are having with the Office of Special Prosecutor, with bad management, too many administrative staff, outnumbering prosecutors, etc. You know, so many things. You hear Honorable Dafia Mekpo, okay, raising issues that why are we not setting up the offices in the regions, when the special prosecutor had promised that they were setting up offices in the regions, etc. You know, problems are innumerable. So, Mr. Okansi, I'm displaying again the diary of action in the SML matter. You see that it displays that they started investigations on the 29th of January 2025. Meanwhile, Kissi Agyabeng had been telling us that, oh, they were investigating the SML matter. They had been investigating it. Meanwhile, they left. They allowed Ofori-Atta to flee. So my point is that let's set up a commission, and also we'll now get time to fully debate the bill. We'll show the mistakes we've learned. We'll see the abuse of power, how special prosecutor can just cause somebody to be arrested, and then they have no mandate to investigate. It didn't happen to Kpebu alone. It happened to lawyer Israel Aka. It happened to a very senior police officer, you see, and so on and so forth. These arbitrary detentions, etc. So we'll cure all of this in a full act. So I support the move, because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. And then you're right on that. And Counsel, just briefly before I let you go, this is just one aspect of many others that they have captured in their recommendations in the Anti-Corruption and Ethics Commission recommendation. That's page 85, just for the benefit of those who would want to check it out. What are the other recommendations you would have expected that would be captured in this regard? The review of the architecture and the fight against corruption. Quickly.
So when we get the full law, and also let's not forget, you see, just one last point, the matter of influence peddling. You know, once again, when the Sheikh case caught Edubuahi and Bawumia, Kissi Agyabeng came and wrote that influence peddling is not part of our law. Meanwhile, it is. So when we get a new law, we'll clarify it. Maybe we'll use the word influence peddling just to put it beyond doubt, because that case allowed Edubuahi and Bawumia, the NPP presidential candidate, to escape. Meanwhile, the thing was very clear. The tape was very clear that Charles Edubuahi, deputy, or at the time he was deputy minister of finance at the time, was involved in influence peddling, involving, extending to Bawumia. That Bawumia will help the Sheikh to get banking license. Everything will be sorted, blah, blah, blah. But because of political reasons, Kissi Agyabeng said, no. Influence peddling is not part of Ghanaian law. So these are some of the changes we'll be expecting in the new law on anti-corruption and ethics.
Well, this aspect of this recommendation you talk about, I don't see it captured in here, but you would have expected that this was captured as well. And these recommendations are going to be subjected to some debate as well going forward. And that's why the president did indicate that he expects some bipartisan approach to this so that we'll get the buy-in of everyone going forward. We're going to go for this quick break. When we're back, we'll tell you what the Attorney General said earlier today about the latest on the fight against corruption and oral. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. Earlier today, the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine, gave some details on the latest regarding oral and the fight against corruption. This time around, Kofi Akpaloo was at the center of this detail earlier today. Take a look.
Gentlemen, in the case involving Mr. Percival Akpaloo of the Liberal Party of Ghana, the Financial Intelligence Center flagged and filed a suspicious transaction report with First Bank Ghana Limited regarding transactions on an account belonging to Poma Universal Ghana Limited. That is a company owned by the said Kofi Akpaloo. Following the STR, that is a suspicious transaction report by the FIC, the Economic and Organized Crime began an investigation into the matter. Ekua Poma also alleged that Akpaloo forged her signature on the Cocoa Board contract using her former name, Mercy Owusu, to secure the agreement without her authorization. First Bank Ghana Limited conducted an internal investigations and corroborated the fraud allegations that we have made, concluding that Akpaloo knowingly misrepresented ownership of the checks and deposited them into the wrong account. The bank acknowledged operational failures in detecting the discrepancies between the check payee names and the account numbers. The suspects who have been investigated are Percival Kofi Akpaloo, Poma Ghana Limited, the Poma with the H, and Delvin Akpaloo, his wife. That is the spouse of Kofi Akpaloo. The evidence shows that they engage in various criminal offenses, including stealing, forgery, and money laundering. And they will be charged by my office, again, as I said, upon resumption of work after the Christmas holidays.
Well, so that's the Attorney General there. And was also some detail of some more trouble for the MPP chair, the West Ashanti Regional Chair, Chairman Wontumi, earlier today. And we'll get into a lot more of that as well tomorrow, because his lawyer has been speaking to the latest that the Attorney General has put out to file fresh charges against him, bringing the cases against Chairman Wontumi alone to 3. Well, we'll get into that tomorrow with his lawyer. But on behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your time. I am Alfred Kansi. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint.